You may have heard the expression, comparison is the thief of joy, and it's true in most areas of life, including investment portfolio comparisons. Let's talk about why you don't need to worry or compare your portfolios to others, especially if you have a solid plan already in place. Thanks for joining me today. My name is Steven Strickland. I'm a certified financial planner and the president of Wise Wealth. I've helped many people plan for a peaceful and enjoyable retirement, and today I want to help you by talking about how to know if you have a good portfolio. In my last video, I talked about diversification and what it means and why it's important. If you missed that video, you'll definitely want to go back and view that one as well, because that one is connected to this one in a lot of ways. It's a natural feeling to experience FOMO, fear of missing out, when it comes to investing. All of us have heard stories of people who got in early and they made it big, or they got into a stock right before it took off. And our natural impulse is always to want to find the next one. However, what most people don't realize is that in order to have gotten in on that investment before everyone else did and before it took off, that would have taken a large amount of risk, an amount of risk of loss that most investors can't handle or would be willing or able to expose themselves to. So for most investors, a long-term investment strategy that involves proper asset allocation, which determines your returns, and proper diversification, which limits risk, is the best approach. And that's because it limits the downside risk of loss and exposure and minimizes the ups and downs while creating a smoother investment experience. However, sometimes investors feel like they may be missing out when someone else's portfolio is outperforming, or if a major stock market index, let's say like the S&P 500, is outperforming their own portfolio. Here's the problem with that kind of thinking. Number one, it is short-sighted and typically based on short-term results. It's extremely important that you understand this principle. Never make changes to a portfolio based on short-term results. The long-term average returns matter way more than the short-term, especially if you're not taking withdrawals. The second reason you shouldn't worry about another portfolio that is supposedly outperforming yours in the short term is because more than likely the portfolio you're comparing yours to is a lot more risky than the one that you're in. So for example, someone may have a portfolio, let's just say this is stocks, and their portfolio is made up of, let's say 75% stocks, and we'll call this a bond. So there's 75% stocks, 25% bonds. But your portfolio is made up of 50% stocks and 50% bonds. So they have 75% stocks, 25% bonds. Yours has 50% stocks, 50% bonds. The bowls look different. So you cannot compare this portfolio to this portfolio because they're not the same. And so typically what happens is a portfolio that is taking on more risk, in this case, a portfolio that is 75% stocks and only 25% bonds, is more risky than the one that has 50 and 50. Okay? So their portfolio, because more risky in the short term, may be getting better returns. But you also have to realize when the market's going down, the more risky portfolio is going to go down faster as well. So keep that in mind. A third reason is typically portfolio comparisons are not accurate unless they hold the same exact asset classes and types in the same exact percentages. So again, going back to my fruit bowl, a lot of times I see this when someone's comparing their diversified portfolio, let's say to the S&P 500. S&P 500 is always out there. It's always, everyone can see the value of that every day. And sometimes it's way up and sometimes it's way down. But a lot of times people own a portfolio and they're comparing it to the S&P 500. The problem with that is the S&P 500 is not only made up of only one asset class, it's made up of only one asset type. It's made up of 100% US large companies. So you have the S&P 500 that looks like this, and your portfolio might look like this. It has stocks and bonds. It does have some US large companies in there. It has some bonds in there. It has some commodities in there. It has real estate. It has all these other things. So here's your portfolio that's diversified, that's minimizing risk and trying to get you good returns long term. And this is the S&P 500. You're not comparing oranges to oranges. Okay, so the only thing in your portfolio that should be benchmarked or should be tracking with the S&P 500 would be this part of your portfolio. That part of your portfolio should be reacting the way the S&P 500 is. It's never going to be the same. First of all, S&P 500 is 100% stocks. Second of all, a diversified portfolio normally is not 100% stocks. It has stocks in there, but it also has bonds. It also has other types of investments that are minimizing the risk. So you can't compare a diversified portfolio to a major stock market index because it is never apples to apples. And so here's a key investment principle that I think it's important for everyone to know. If you want to compare your portfolio, compare it only to your own risk tolerance, your own goals, your own rate of return needs, and peace of mind. So for example, you shouldn't compare your portfolio to the S&P 500. You wouldn't want that type of risk. You want the type of risk that you can handle where it's a smoother ride over time. So ask yourself, is my portfolio designed to achieve the annual rates of return I need for the long term, for the least amount of risk that I am able to handle to meet my needs and goals? So make sure you are allocated in such a way to get you the returns you need long term, and to make sure you are diversified in such a way to handle the volatility. Then do what all successful investors do. They wait and they stay disciplined. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's video, please hit the like and subscribe button below. I'll release new videos just like this every 2 weeks. So if you don't want to miss the next one, please go ahead and hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.